Get. So hi everyone, thank you so much for joining this WAMIP webinar from our youth group. Thank you for being on time. Before we begin, I would just like to welcome you all, and we have some housekeeping before we start. So I ask everyone to please choose their interpretation language, which is the most important part. Let me just send in the chat as well as some instructions in different languages. Give me a moment. Okay. The others who speak English, please feel free to read the slide while we make sure that all our guests speaking other languages also have the instructions. Okay. So to begin, first of all, thank you all for being here. As I mentioned, the most important element is to make sure that you choose your interpretation language. Today we have interpretation available in French, in Spanish, in Russian, and Mongolian. And also, given that this is a Zoom meeting, but we're using it for webinar purposes, we ask everyone to please keep your microphone off, and use the chat function to ask questions, leave comments, and interact with the other participants and guests. And also, there will be time at the end of this webinar for questions. So make sure to either send your question in the chat, or during the Q&A part, you will have the opportunity to raise your hand and ask your question live. I forgot to introduce myself, so let me do that first. My name is Aliya Kumekbaeva. I manage the Global Secretariat of WAMIP, and also the youth group who is at the lead of this webinar. And to present the program for today, we will first go through some introduction to WAMIP, and then we will hear from Samuel Ikua, who is the IPC Youth Working Group member and co-coordinator of the CSIPM Global Food Governance Working Group, on his experience and recommendations for the global pastoralist youth on their engagement in the decision-making frameworks. We will then hear from Raffaele Morgantini from CETIM on some practical ways to actually implement and use the UN Declaration on the Rights of Peasants and other people working in rural areas, including the pastoralists as rights holders. And we will finish with a big youth roundtable from members of the WAMIP youth working group, and hear as well on very important inputs that they have in terms of their experience with participation in global governance and decision-making frameworks. Finally, we will have a Q&A session, as I mentioned, so you will have a chance to also interact and ask your questions. So before we dive into the presentations, I wanted to briefly introduce the World Alliance of Mobile Indigenous Peoples and Pastoralists, or WAMIP for short. WAMIP is a social pastoralist movement rooted in the grassroots, beginning in the early 2000s when pastoralists first gathered at a conference on national parks in Durban, South Africa. In 2003, this was. And it was there that we achieved the change of the misconception that pastoralists are enemies of conservation. Much in contrary, many of the world's most biodiverse areas exist because of the activities and stewardship of pastoralists. And the representatives of the mobile pastoralist people or mobile people present there then decided to form their own association in cooperation and solidarity with other indigenous and tribal peoples movements worldwide. So today we represent between 250 and 500 million people in the world living on what the world often calls marginal lands, such as the Arctic tundras, the vast deserts, the high mountains, and the open grasslands. But these lands are not marginal. In fact, they are at the absolute center of the livelihoods of communities that have co-evolved with these rich ecosystems for millennia. And for pastoralists worldwide, these rangelands are the support structure for animals, cultures, and their very own existence. Which is why young pastoralists, as the next generation of rangeland stewards, should hold a central role in the decision-making, whether it be at a global level, such as in the frame of the 2026 International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists, IYRP, as many of you probably know, or locally with their communities. And just to give you a brief snapshot of some of our past successes as WAMIP in advocating for increased visibility and respect of mobile Indigenous pastoralist rights, pastoralists are now recognized as important rights holders within the UN Declaration on the Rights of Peasants, the UNDROP, which we will be hearing more on from Raffaele later on how to use it as a tool. And we also actively advocate for food sovereignty with La Via Campesina and IPC and other partners, and for pastoralists more broadly in UN spaces. This IYRP year is, of course, especially important for pastoralists, not merely as participants or stakeholders, but very importantly as the right holders who must be at the forefront of the global decision-making as part of this year. So with that brief introduction to WAMIP and a bit of its background, I am now happy to pass on to Sam Ikua, who will present some of his recommendations for youth engagement in decision-making spaces. And Sam has a lot of experience, and as you can see by his roles in different governance spaces, and we're very happy to have him. So Sam, over to you.
Thanks very much, Aliyah, and greetings to all my fellow young people in the food systems. My name is Sam Ikua, and I'm very happy to be with you here today and to share some of experiences of us as young people, how we can participate in political decision-making processes for agriculture and food systems. So these experiences have been gotten over time through my active role in participating in political processes in Kenya, in Africa, and also globally through IPC and the CSIPM, that is the civil society and indigenous peoples mechanism for engaging with the UN Committee on World Food Security. Now, if you can move to the next slide. Now I'll share with you in a very simple way and practical some of the reflections that I have had, and hoping that they can help you in your local advocacy with your local governments, national governments, as well as in global food governance spaces. Now the first one is, and perhaps the most important one, is whenever you are called to give feedback to a policy, let's say UNDROP, it's important to prepare adequately. Read the draft policy document extensively. Gather all the key background information. Why is this policy being proposed? What is being proposed? How will it be implemented? How is it relating with other aspects in other international frameworks? Because an informed person is a powerful person, and that's how you'll be able to debate productively with other stakeholders, who include government officials and business peoples and agriculturalists, pastoralists. It's very important to have your facts on the hand. Let's say our policy is being proposed for East Africa, touching Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. You need to know the number of people that the pastoralists would be affected so that you can respond. You need to know what are the objectives of this policy. Does it align with your priorities? Does it align with the broader needs of your sector? Once you have all this key background information, you'll be able to respond to the policy positions from an informed point. And the next point is on the need of using data. And here you use both quantitative and qualitative data for one simple reason: for persuasion. When you, for example, you're going to say an investment has been proposed in Jordan, and you think it will affect your pastoralist community, don't just say you'll be affected, but instead give quantitative data and say the establishment of this conservation park will evict 30,000 pastoralists, 17,000 of whom are women and 13 men, and 70% of this population is youth. When you give that quantitative data, it's very convincing and you look as an informed young person. But don't just give quantitative data, also match it with the human impact stories. Say eviction from here will evict us from our land, which we have occupied for 4 generations, and it will not only affect our economics, it will also affect our social way of living, our culture. So the impacts are far more reaching than just the economics, and touch on other cultural and social areas. And as young people, we are very knowledgeable, we have the right skills. You can capture these stories using social media and post it in your local TikTok, WhatsApp, and Facebook groups. It's very simple to interview yourself in a selfie video with women and youth, describing the impact of this policy that they would have. Apart from data, it's important that your proposals that you give, that they are pegged on relevant, legal, number one, and also policy documents spanning across global, continental, let's say Latin America, Asia or Africa, and also national and local levels. Why is this important? Because we live in an increasingly globalized world. We all come from different countries, and our countries may be signatories of UNDROP or the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. And some national constitutions say, like I'll give an example of Kenya. If Kenya is a signatory to UNDROP, then it is bound to implement the UNDROP. So in case the indigenous peoples in Kenya are being evicted, then that is against the UNDROP, and that constitutes a violation. Also, when you're giving these policy proposals, quote these international, even local frameworks, so that you can give them more weight. And the other part is it's important when you go to these policy processes, you negotiate as a large coalition, as a network. And why is this important? It's because numbers matter for political legitimacy or representation of your proposals. For example, if there is a case in Latin America that's affecting pastoralists, don't just go there as youth from Colombia or Brazil, but rather combine your forces, combine your numbers so that your proposals will be seen. Yes, you are representing a larger group of youth from Latin America, not just your local country, and that will give political weight to your proposals. In politics, numbers matter. Remember, that's how politicians win the votes. So the same case, we as social movements, we should peg on numbers to win for our proposals, okay? It gives, when you argue like WAMIP, you're in a very good position, you're global, so when you give this voice, like in an FAO regional conference, it has more weight and will be highly accepted. And last but not least, it's important to be prepared to compromise in these policy processes. You know, what is written in the text, policy text, is very important. That's why, like UNDROP, took many years of negotiations, 30 years, okay? UNDROP also took a long time because, yeah, it has very many actors. It has democratic governments. It has autocratic governments. Democratic governments support human rights, social justice. Other types of governments are conservative and repressive. And not just governments. You're also there with the business sector, multinational corporations. You are all debating and arguing out points. So this being a political process of give and take, it is expected that you compromise on some issues so that you can have a win-win situation. I'll give an example of my experience last year when we were negotiating for the urban and peri-urban agriculture policy recommendations at the UN Committee on World Food Security. As a civil society and indigenous peoples mechanisms, we proposed agroecology as the way to solve food insecurity in urban and peri-urban areas. However, we had the private sector mechanism there. You know, they do not support agroecology. They want large-scale industrial farming. And the private sector was supported by some governments. Then there, as the chair of the committee of drafting this policy, we had to come to a compromise, say, yes, civil society will take your agroecology, but we'll also combine it with the innovative approaches proposed by the private sector mechanism and the businesses. So there, civil society we won, the private sector they won. So that's how you come as a compromise, so that you can win together. Even the governments themselves, they have to compromise. Democratic governments compromise against autocratic governments. It's a very, very political process. And I finalize by this presentation by saying, as young people, we are very, very empowered. We are not just recipients of knowledge, but we possess this knowledge. And especially right now in a digital world, we have a lot of power. We know so much. You in Jordan, Mongolia, you in Colombia, you know so much. Let's take advantage of digital tools and create our stories, post on social media, and that way we can be able to reach policymakers effectively and share our stories. So our youthfulness is not a weakness, rather it's a very timely, powerful where we are. Thank you very much, and I look forward to the rest of the discussion.
Thank you so much, Sam. And thank you for the very, very practical recommendations. This was only a very short introduction to the kind of materials that you also cover locally with the young members of your community in trainings. But thank you for the summary. And I would also welcome everyone to get in touch with Sam if you would like more details. So next we will move on to the presentation from Raffaele Morgantini. Raffaele works as the advocacy officer and representative of CETIM, an organization based in Geneva, fighting for the rights of peasants and other rights holders. And Raffaele will walk us through using the UNDROP as a political and advocacy tool. So over to you.
Hello, everyone. Greetings to all WAMIP friends and comrades. Thank you very much for inviting me to this very valuable strategic space of discussion. It's really great to see many young pastoralists that are active and willing to keep on the fight for more resilient, just, equitable food systems. We are in a very delicate international conjuncture, an economic system that is promoted by the dominant elites that aims at dismantling, right, the structures, the communities, the groups of people and workers in the rural areas that are not conducive to their interests that we know are basically based in the search of profit maximization. So we need really to unite and build counter people's power to enhance the fundamental rights of our people. So my intervention, as Aliyah introduced, will focus mainly on UNDROP, the UN Declaration on the Right of Peasants and other people working in the rural areas. So as Aliyah reminded, these other people working in the rural areas, the title of this legal instrument, pastoralists, are very well included, recognized as rights holders of this international legal framework. You can see very clearly in Article 1.2 of the declaration that speaks about the scope of this declaration, that pastoralism is well incorporated, which means that pastoralists are recognized as fundamental rights holders of the declaration. I just put in the chat the wording of that article so that you can all see it. So UNDROP, in our vision, it's really a historical victory of peasants, pastoralists, fisher people, agricultural workers, all of these rural constituencies that are working, that are fighting, that are struggling for food sovereignty and for more just and resilient food system. It represents, in our view, a powerful legal and political leverage that recognize, as I said, you as rights holders, and most importantly, a legal and political tool leverage that you can mobilize at local, national, regional, international level to claim and fight for better protection of pastoralists' rights. So CETIM, my organization, has been working alongside La Via Campesina, WAMIP, in order to socialize this legal instrument, foster a process of getting ownership of the instruments by the rights holders, which is the starting point for claiming and strategizing for advocacy efforts to implement the rights enshrined in UNDROP. So we have been working for the socialization, ownership of this instrument, and now we are also working for its promotion and implementation. And this is what I would like to focus my intervention on. So first element, UNDROP is a strategic advocacy instrument because it arises from the grassroots movements. Okay, it is certainly a UN normative framework, but it was first of all a claim, a demand from the grassroots rural constituencies, and it also contributes to shift the narrative from, for example, vulnerable population to rights holders, right? And it also allows to frame pastoralist rights and claims as human rights obligations for states. If you read, again, the content of the declaration, you will see that the different articles have rights for the pastoralists, the peasants, etc., rights that are always followed by obligations, okay? So now the big question is, okay, we have this normative framework, we have this declaration, but how can we use it? Which concrete mechanisms can be used, sized, mobilized to advance in the concrete respect and implementation of the pastoralist rights that are enshrined in the instrument, which are the political and legal recourse arenas that you can use. Okay, so let me try to speak quickly, because I don't have much time, about three main areas of work, arenas that I believe pastoralists could use in order to advance in the promotion and implementation of pastoralist rights in the light of the provisions of UNDROP. First of all is the national level advocacy. I would say that this is the primary arena, okay? National level advocacy, and this relates a lot with what Sam just presented. It's about mobilizing voices to influence legal frameworks, public policies on pastoralist rights, right? So influencing these laws and policies, translating UNDROP provisions into them. Okay, so you can use UNDROP in order to advocate, for example, for the legal recognition of pastoralism in national legal frameworks, in national constitutions, for example. You can push for land tenure reforms, collective land rights, mobility corridors, all issues very important for pastoralists, right? You can push for this using Article 17 on the right to land and territories, a key article, a key pillar of this UNDROP. Okay, you can try to influence sectorial policies on agriculture, on climate, on biodiversity, using relevant articles of UNDROP. At national level, there are concrete mechanisms. There are parliaments, so you can engage with parliamentarians in order to elaborate new laws, to repeal laws that are contrary to the letter and spirit of UNDROP. You can propose amendments to existing laws using UNDROP principles and provisions, right? So it's really about trying to engage and intervene in these national policy-making processes using UNDROP, because it's a fundamental instrument that recognizes, that gives you the power to claim for rights that have been recognized at the international level. Never forget that pastoralist rights is not a claim from the grassroots only, it's a guideline by the UN. This is how you have to present it. So this was the first arena, so the national level. Then an important arena within the national level, but I wanted to present it as a separate one, is judicial mobilization. Okay, so you can engage in litigation in order to create jurisprudences. Okay, so this means using UNDROP with lawyers in courts, for example, invoke UNDROP provisions, the right to land, for example, as an interpretative tool for judges, a supporting normative framework in rights-based cases. We already have many examples of progressive jurisprudences at national level where judges in many countries used UNDROP articles and provisions to take decisions favorable to rural people, to peasants. We will make sure to send all of these example, good practices, jurisprudences to all of you so that you can get to know and get inspired by this. Okay, so it's about working for strategic litigation, bringing emblematic cases of violations, using UNDROP to strengthen the legal arguments that explain why this is a violation of the fundamental rights of pastoralists. Okay, And yeah, it's really about, so in these jurisprudences that we have, we acknowledge that judges used concrete articles of UNDROP to interpret national law in line with these international standards, and they referenced UNDROP in the rulings. Okay, and this created these jurisprudences. Okay, so it's very important. So first arena was national level advocacy, second, judicial mobilization of UNDROP, and third, I would like to shed light on international mechanisms. So UNDROP has been adopted at the international level by the Human Rights Council, first of all, and then by the UN General Assembly. Okay, so after the adoption of UNDROP, we can use different mechanisms that exist at the international law level within the UN system, and that allows you to internationally visibilize these emblematic cases, pastoralist rights, etc., and use these mechanisms to feed your national strategies, your national efforts, struggles, and fights. Okay, so we have different mechanisms. We have the Human Rights Council that has different mechanisms, the Universal Periodic Review of different countries. We have the possibility to submit complaints to UN protection mechanisms about violation of pastoralist rights. Okay, and the most important one of these mechanisms is the UN Working Group of Experts on UNDROP. So this is an independent mechanism that was created in October 2023 as a follow-up mechanism of the implementation of UNDROP in the different UN member states. I'm very happy to see that one of the independent experts of this working group is here today, Geneviève Sanivini. Hello, Geneviève. So this is a very important mechanism at the international level because it gives rights holders the possibility to submit complaints, as I said, and to internationalize your struggles at the international level. And that will give you and your struggles a lot of visibility that you will then be able to use it at national level to put pressure to continue and feed your fights and struggles. Okay, I don't have much time to develop on all the mechanisms. If you are interested, we can speak more in detail after, but please know that the most important one is this working group, and I will just paste here in the chat a concrete training fact sheet that we elaborated on how to use this international mechanism. Okay, so yeah, to conclude, this is about a multidimensional strategy in which UNDROP can be used to combine, to articulate ongoing local struggles, national advocacy strategies and efforts, national legal reforms, and international advocacy, international pressure. And these different levels, it's very important to understand, I think, they interact with each other. They mutually reinforce each other. They shall definitely be used simultaneously, I would say, as they don't compete with each other, but rather complement. Okay, and so yeah, we tend to speak kind of about a boomerang strategy. Okay, especially when situations, access to justice is blocked at the national level, then we escalate internationally using UNDROP at the international level. But this international level is not intended to be the solution, because we all know the limits, the limitations of the UN system. But we escalate internationally, but in order to feed then and bring international decisions and recommendations back to local and national level. Okay, so yeah, really UNDROP is a historical legal instrument with a lot of political weight, mostly because it was claimed and built from below. It's one of the unique examples of building international law from below by and for the social movements. Okay, so the legitimacy is huge. The effectiveness of this instrument and the implementation of the instrument, of course, depends on many factors, right? The political conjuncture in the different states, the sensitiveness of national authorities to pastoralist rights, of course, but also it's also about strategy, across these multiple arenas. It's about, the capacity to translate UNDROP into concrete struggles and efforts. And it's also a lot about coalition building, okay? Because we have witnessed in many countries where grassroots rural organizations manage to build multi-sectoral alliances, but also with human rights NGOs, with scholars, with environmental justice movements, with public servants, with allied state authorities. The promotion and implementation of UNDROP advances more comprehensively, right? So this is a little bit what I wanted to share. I just wanted to remind that CETIM and WAMIP conducted a first capacity building process, a training process on UNDROP with Eastern African leaders last year. It was very interesting, precisely to socialize UNDROP, to foster this ownership of UNDROP by leaders and pastoralist movements, and also to strategize to see how to advance in the implementation. And one of the key outcomes, products of this training was the elaboration of a fact sheet on protecting and promoting mobile indigenous people and pastoralist rights, UNDROP as a legal and political leverage. So it's a very important fact sheet, I would say, that it's almost done, it's almost ready, in which we try to highlight how pastoralist rights are reflected in UNDROP, and thus how we can use UNDROP to enhance your fundamental rights. So it is intended to be a very strong advocacy tool for you, for pastoralist movements, for youth, etc. So we hope that this fact sheet will be finalized very soon. We just need to do the layout, and then we will be translating it in all the languages. In any case, it's already translated in French, Spanish, and English. We'll make sure to translate it also in Russian, Mongolian, that I understand are very important languages for WAMIP. Maybe we can share just very quickly. Let me, I don't know if I can do it. No.
I have shared it in the chat already.
Okay, perfect. And I think that's it for now. And also to say that CETIM remains at your disposal at WAMIP service to conduct other training and capacity building processes on UNDROP. So if you are interested in this kind of processes, please contact us, contact the Secretariat of WAMIP, and then we can discuss. And as I said, we are really here for you, and do not hesitate to contact us. Thank you very much, and I'm open to questions and comments. Thank you very much, and again for the invitation, Aliyah.
Thank you so much, Raffaele, and we really appreciate all of the support that CETIM has provided to WAMIP in actually operationalizing the UNDROP. And as Raffaele mentioned, and as was shared in the chat, one of the results of this collaboration has been this fact sheet, which was also a product of the trainings that we've done, and where we could actually see and discuss with pastoralists themselves how UNDROP is applied in their specific cases. So we will have more time for questions also for Raffaele and Sam and our other speakers after the roundtable. So if you do have questions, please post them in the chat, and we'll make sure to address them later on. And at this point, I would like to introduce the guests of honor, so our young pastoralist speakers. As you can see, we have quite a few of them joining us today. We have Joyce, Nuzaik, Osama, Reem, John Mark, Rodolfo, Mohammed, Hannah, and Felix. And I would also like to remind everyone to please make sure that you select your language. Even for English speakers, it will be important that you select English interpretation so that you also hear from speakers speaking other languages. So please make sure to do that. And I would like to now invite our young pastoralist speakers. My first question will be directed to Joyce. And let me see if I can spotlight Joyce. Here, we should be able to see each other now. So Joyce, I don't see you. Please make sure to turn on your camera. Oh, there you are. Hello.
Yeah.
So Joyce, please, as also our youth group facilitator, please, could you tell us a bit about how...
Thank you.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Alia.
Okay.
Can hear you.
Joyce, please tell us, how are you engaged in youth-led governance and leadership on pastoralist issues? And also, what kind of challenges have you been experiencing during that process? So over to you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Alia. Hi, everyone. I'm Nube Joyce, a young pastoralist, born and raised in Matulani, south of Zimbabwe, a member of Grace and Concepts, and as well as a member of WAMIP. So, back to your question, when you asked how am I engaged in any activity, I'm actually working with a project that we are doing in Shangane, which is Matebelani south of Zimbabwe, whereby we are actually working on promoting sustainable livestock practices, whereby we mobilize youth and also engage in local leaders on pastoralist issues. So we are currently also engaged with heading activities whereby we engage youth as well. And we're also been involved in health strengthening activities, which actually support the livestock during the dry season so that we don't strain farmers on buying the feed. We also focus on climate resistance strategies, for example, rotational grazing, so that we protect the pastures, and we also engage with other local NGOs in Zimbabwe. Challenges that we have faced a lot of challenges, but I'll just mention a few. Firstly is limited resources, limited financial strength as well for youth, which is most of them always climate change. Limited market access for the youth, because mostly the youth won't be able to access the market for the cattle product. For example, we sell the Nkone shoes, which is another project that we are doing in Shangane, whereby we share the Nkone shoes. We sell the Nkone shoes. So if the youth face the challenge of failing to sell those, then it automatically demotivates the youth. And also the cultural norms. Most of the cultural, they believe in taking instructions maybe from the elders, not literally from the youth. So most likely we are not heard as youths. So that's another challenge that we are having as youths as well. And most importantly is the conflict over resources. For example, we can have conflict with elders that, no, this is our grazing land, you can't access this, you can't access that. So it's another challenge that we face as youth, especially here in Zimbabwe. I think with that being said, that's all that we have. Thank you so much, Alia. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Joyce, and thank you as well for joining from the road, being a true mobile pastoralist on the move, as we saw just live. So thank you, Joyce, for some of that some of that feedback on your experience. I would now like to hand over to Nusaik, joining us from Sri Lanka. So Nusaik, similar questions to you. Would be great to hear a bit from your experience in Sri Lanka and maybe more broadly from the region. How are you engaged in youth-led governance, and whether there were also other challenges that you've been experiencing?
Thank you, Alia. Hello everyone. This is Nusaik from Sri Lanka, working as a district coordinator of NAPSO, and we are working with the rural community to engage them and to build their power strength. And thank you for this wonderful opportunity. It is an honor to join this webinar for my community. To our community, pastoralism is far more than an economic sector. It is our heritage, our culture, and our identity. However, we live in a time where climate change and shifting economics threaten its ancient way of life. I am honored to share how we are ensuring that the future pastoralism remains in capable hands by placing our youth at the very heart of governance and leadership. Our engagement begins by moving beyond of the idea of youth as mere followers. Instead, we treat them as researchers and innovators. We select young leaders from various regions and provide them with a specialized training on climate change and specific challenges faced by pastoralists today. By encouraging them to conduct field research with their own localities, we turn them into the primary expert on their own lands. Furthermore, we teach them that being a modern pastoralist and guardian of local heritage are not mutually exclusive. By demonstrating the economic benefits of sustainable farming and animal husbandry, we motivate them to see pastoralism as a variable, prestigious, and professional career path. To ensure this leadership is sustainable, we have established a structured reporting system where trained youth are appointed as a regional representative. Every month, we gather to hear their reports on local conditions, creating a youth-led data network that informs our community's highest level of decision-making. We believe that leadership is not just about giving a speech. It is about having a seat at the table where the decision made. To address the gap in representation, we have actively worked on institutional reform by reviewing the constitution of local community organizations and NGOs to advocate for minority youth quotas. We strongly insist that positions such as vice president and assistant secretary must be held by young people. This creates a functional success plan where youth gain hands-on experience under the guidance of elders, ensuring that when the time comes, they are second leaders ready to take the controls. Despite our progress, the journey has not been without significant challenges. Ensuring that youth voices are truly heard and not just present is a constant battle. Often, traditional structures are resistant to change, and breaking the mindset that leadership only comes with old age remains a significant hurdle. Additionally, many young people feel pressured and migrate to cities for quick income. But we now convince them to the long-term economic stability in pastoralism requires constant effort and proven result. We also frequently face the challenges of tokenism, where organizations include youth just to meet a requirement without giving them actual decision-making power. We counter this by strictly insisting on roles that carry specific measurable responsibilities. So our model is simple: prepare the youth and then provide them the actual space to lead. By blending traditional pastoralist wisdom with modern scientific training and formal administrative roles, we are building a resilient future. We are not just saving a professional as Nafso, we are empowering a generation to lead their community with pride and purpose. So thank you so much for this opportunity. I think it will very speed because the time is not enough for me. So I conclude my speech as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nuzeg. And I really liked what you said about actually placing the youth in positions of leadership and having that opportunity for them to learn from the elders and having that succession. So thanks a lot. I will now invite Mohammed from Mali. Mohammed, let me see if I can see you. Oh, there you are. Hello. So, Mohammed, please, could you also share a bit about your experience from Mali? Thank you. Mohammed, please unmute. Unmute, yes.
Bonjour à tous et à tous.
Okay, hi everyone.
Je me nomme Mohamed El Mokhtar Ag Mohamed.
My name is Mohamed El Mokhtar Ag Mohamed. I'm a young Malian herder. I'm also a member of the youth group of WAMIP. I'm here, I speak today on behalf of many young herders who, despite their daily commitment to pastoralism, are still not giving enough space in decision-making forum. Too often, our voices are absent or treated, even though we are directly affected by the decision being made. So one of the biggest challenges we face is the limited role given to youth pastoralists in leadership spaces, which are usually dominated by elders. This imbalance makes it difficult for youth perspective to be taken seriously. Another challenge is the lack of access to information and opportunities for pastoralist youth. Without clear channels to engage, our involvement remains weak and fragmented.
Pour conclure, les jeunes éleveurs veulent
So, investing in young herders today, actually, the youth really want to be included. In decision-making spaces. So to change this, it is essential to support and trust youth's initiative, even in difficult contexts like ours. Strengthening youth leadership requires leadership so we have to create inclusive spaces where youth pastoralists are represented, not just consulted. Second, building our capacities through trainings in leadership, advocacy, and governance so we can engage effectively Third, facilitating access to information and networks and digital tools so that youth herders can connect, share, and strengthen their collective voice. So investing in youth herders today is the best way to secure the sustainability of pastoralism tomorrow. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. Thank you for sharing. And for the very practical recommendations for how we can involve youth better. So now I would like to hand over to our next young pastoralist speaker, Reem from Jordan. So please, Reem, over to you, and it would be great to also hear your perspective from your country and from your region.
Thank you, Aliyah. Hello, this is Reem. I'm 25 years old. I'm a youth pastoralist coming from pastoralist family. I work with Dana and Qadisiyya local cooperative, and I'm a member of WAMIP Youth. I live in Tafila, Jordan. I will speak not only from my own experience, but from what I see every day among other youth pastoralists in my community where I work. I have experienced many challenges, which makes me sad, in ensuring that the voices of youth are included and represented in decision making. One of the biggest challenges we face is the decision related to grazing right. Water access are often made without consulting youth. These policies are usually shaped by older generation, and I think all of the youth speak before me all agrees on this one. Who have valuable experience. We can't deny that, but they often focus on current challenges, not on the future risk. As young people, we are the ones who will inherit this system. We have to deal with the climate change and the pressure on grazing land. Despite this, our ideas, especially those related to innovation or sustainability, are rarely included in planning or policy discussion. Another major challenge is economic. Many youth pastoralists do not own livestock they care for. They spend long hours managing animal, moving across the grazing land, and dealing with real challenges on the ground. However, they lack ownership. They are not seen as a stakeholder. Instead, they are treated as worker. This creates a situation where those who are most connected to the land and livestock have the least influence on decision making. Like, I'm the one facing the challenge, I'm the one taking the cows, I'm the one taking the sheep, so I know the problem I face. You have to hear my voice so you know what's the problem and how we can solve it. Without economic power, it's become very difficult for youth to participate meaningfully on decision making, let's say. In addition to that, there is a social and cultural barrier. In many cases, young people are simply not invited, which is the worst thing to happen into decision-making space. Community meetings are often led by elders, and even when youth are presented, there is expectation they will listen more than they can speak. Respectful elders is one of the most important value in our society, and I strongly believe in it. But however, sometimes this respect unintentionally limits open dialogue. Young people may hesitate to share their opinion, especially if they challenge a traditional way of thinking. This creates a silence that is not because you've had nothing to say, but because they do not feel empowered to say it. Another challenge is the lack of a structural platform that especially supports youth participation. There are very few representation in decision-making bodies related to natural resources. Without a clear roles of opportunity. Youth involvement depends on personal effort rather than being integrated part of governance. These challenges have real consequences. When youth are excluded, decision may overlook new ideas, adaptive practices, or early sign of environmental change that youth pastoralists are directly experiencing it. Also creates a gap between generation where knowledge is not effectively shared or developed together. However, I believe this situation like this can change. What we need is to see pastoralists, to listen to their voices. We do not need to replace existing leadership, but to complement it. We need to create inclusive spaces where youth are actively invited to participate, where their contributions are taken seriously, and where they can gradually take on leadership roles with the elder people, because I know we respect them. They have more experience than us, but we are the one who work in the field. We are like most of the time we are the one work in the field. We are the one who face the problem. So we need to change this because the youth are not only the future. We already part of a present. We are working, learning, adapting, and facing the same challenging. So we have to be included on decision making. I know that people before me already tell some of the same challenges, and that's mean this is a serious challenge, because when a lot of people or a lot of youth in different part of the world have the same challenges, that means we really have to change it. From my personal experience, I faced there was a global meeting for young pastors in Madrid on the 9th of April, and we were not able to attend because our participation was not properly facilitated by the organizer. This is a clear example of how youth are often left out even when opportunity exists. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Reem. So much valuable content in what you've said, and also how it echoes the other speakers today. I think you've very much rightly said that that means that we should listen to it with even more attention and concern. Thank you so much. I would now like to move on to our next speaker, John Mark from Uganda. John Mark, there you are.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. John Mark, as we've heard today, I think we've gotten an overview and a good picture of the similar challenges that are faced by young pastoralists all over the world. And I was wondering whether, from your side, if there's anything new that you would like to add to what has been already contributed, or whether we could also maybe get your perspective on what areas could be improved, maybe some suggestions as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Halia. Thank you, everyone online. Once again, my name's John Mark. I'm from Uganda, northeastern part of Uganda. That's Karamoja region, the historical corridor of pastoralists in the region. And I work for Rangeland Community Initiative Africa, amplifying pastoralist voices in the region, the northeastern part of Uganda, more on ecosystem and pastoralist, actually voicing more from the rangelands. I'm also a youth member for WAMIP, and I'm glad to participate in this kind of grateful kind of webinar. For time consciousness, and I'm looking at the time, I'd critically say a lot has been said, but I would highlight a few challenges that we pastoralists from this side mainly face as youth in Uganda and the northeastern part of Uganda, that's Karamoja. One is the persistent cultural perception. We youth in this side more are considered as just seen to be in the discussions or decision making, and rather the cultural setting here that's rooted in the traditional system on governance is more like on elders. Elders are taken as the decision makers when it comes to governance. So rather more youth are considered as participants in these governing issues related to pastoralists, which is actually limiting us from echoing what is concerning us from the grassroots to this final kind of decisions taken. That's the cultural aspect of it that is so much rooted in tradition, that whereby youth are more of a neglect, especially they are looked at people to be seen, but not to echo out. We are looked at as inexperienced people in the decision making. That's one cultural aspect in Karamoja that's a challenge. And then the other one mainly that's happening apparently is the elite capture that's mainly done by NGO partners, local government, whereby they have disconnected the youth from the kraals and the youth from the communities. Why? In a sense that these partners call for a kind of a setting or a discussion on pertaining issues of rangelands and pastoralists. Rather, in this case, they consider a token to get this youth from a trading center, and they forget the illiterate more that are in the kraals. So right now that's happening is that system has been disconnected. The pastoralists, or I will say the shepherds that are in these kraals, that care for animals, that do the rangeland mapping and assessing for all, are not well informed in the decisions taken. Why? Because the elite capture is much taken by the government and NGO partners, in the sense that they look at more facilitating people who are near, and they leave out what? The ones who are in the kraals. So that disconnection is creating a big challenge when it comes to decision making as pastoralists. The other one as well is the economic vulnerability, as of course pastoralists in the region were not actually viable, like to the economic kind of aspect. I would say they unable, like in financially, we're unable like to integrate economically in the region. Why? Because more often we look at the cost of getting these shepherds or pastoralists to come to these platforms. But if I realize in a sense that the system that is there today, partners or NGOs are looking at having these pastoralists in kind of conference or kind of thing, which makes it insecure for the pastoralists in the kraals. They feel insecure because I can't leave my kraal or a rangeland to come to an urban setting to discuss pertaining issues. And yet I know, like, I'm the court caretaker behind it there. Rather this should actually change, should be the opposite. We should be the ones to move to these rangelands. Why would I say that? I would say key few recommendations that I see that need to be improved, because I'm looking at time is not my friend. The key areas that we think, we should literally improve is one is recognizing this traditional youth. Just as I'd said earlier on, the challenge is here is we're not recognized in the decision making. Rather, elders take us like we're just to be seen in the decision making. So what I would advise is we should recognize this traditional youth systems, especially to formalize, especially in the decision making, that there is also an echo of this youth. They connect from the kraals to this final decision measures taken by the elders or by the elderly in the decision making related to governing issues in Karamoja. Then the other one is institutionalizing, I'll say, the pastoralist youth to move to this kind of sedimentary kind of aspects that we're trying to promote. Rather, would map now like these rangelands and where these kraals are, where these pastoralist corridors are, these migration routes are, and we have rather these sessions being conducted at the rangelands to make sure we are able to adopt all these kraal youth leaders to have participation in these decisions, so that they're able to witness, we're able to tell the status quo of these rangelands, we're able to tell what are the key decisions pertaining our rangelands, pertaining our pastoralism within here, rather than having that disconnect because of financial kind of aspects and all that, and then we're able to move them to the sedimentary, I would say, kind of institutions. Then the last one I would recommend, or areas to be improved, is would actually promote what we call mobile governance structures, whereby we're able to go and educate the pastoralists from their rangelands, mainly than us having this kind of hierarchical kind of governance, where we almost times bring the allied youth, we bring more of the pastoralists that are within maybe that corridor, but not the real kraal guys or shepherds of the earth that are within the rangelands. And that will create actually a meaningful decision or participation as youth in these kind of governing issues. Why? Because pastoralism is now a system in, I would say pastoralism itself is a system that is transitioning like each and every time. So we wouldn't look at it like it's something that's supposed to be looked at within only table or kind of high profile level. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, John Mark. And I love the suggestion that you have about the mobile governance mechanism to actually come and meet pastoralists where they are. So thank you so much. I will now hand over to Rodolfo from Bolivia to also give us his perspective as our only representative from the Latin American region today. So Rodolfo. Rodolfo, sorry.
Hola,
Yes.
¿me escuchan?
Please go
Hola,
ahead.
sí.
Yes.
Ok. Hola, muy buenos días, tardes, noches, no sé por dónde estarán, pero un gusto. Mi nombre es Rodolfo Flores Mamani. Soy de Bolivia, aproximadamente de la cordillera de los Andes, ¿ok?
Sorry, perdón, Rodolfo. Ari, could you please switch to the English channel?
Yes. Oh, yes, of course. Hi,
Okay.
folks.
Hello,
There we go.
now we
Sorry.
hear you. Okay.
Great.
Ok.
My name is
Mi nombre es
Rodolfo.
Rodolfo Flores Mamani. Soy de Bolivia.
I'm from Bolivia.
22 años.
I'm 22 years old.
Soy aproximadamente de las altiplanías de
I'm from
Bolivia,
the high
por la
plains
cordillera
of
de los
Bolivia
Andes.
in the
Me dedico al
Andes.
pastoralismo, también soy
I'm a
líder de
pastoralist.
jóvenes.
I'm also a youth leader.
Trabajo con un grupo de jóvenes.
I work with youth.
Y también me dedico a la artesanía, mi familia.
And I also make artisanal products.
Lo que yo quisiera comentar
What I
también
wanted
es
to
sobre este
comment
lado de
about
Sudamérica, ¿no?
from my perspective here in South America, principally the challenges that we face as youth. It's like what the majority has already said. We have a lot of youth who are afraid to raise their hand and say, I have this idea or this is my opinion when there are meetings in the community, in our local community, or an event. The youth don't feel included normally to those activities. You know, they can participate, but they are afraid to raise their hand and say, you know, I want to really participate. And I think that has been a challenge in these last years where youth, because they haven't been incorporated or heard, they choose to migrate to the cities, leave their rural areas behind, their community behind, and they begin to move to the cities. And this has been a challenge to working in these last couple of years. Many have spoken out, as my, including myself, and what we've been working on has been with working with the adults, with the leaders of the community, has been to have a system where they hear us and they incorporate us in the decision making, in governance, in the community. And I think that it's been great because a lot of youth now don't have that fear of raising their hand and saying, I want to have my opinion shared. And of course, we continue to work because not everyone has the bravery to say, you know, I want to do this, I think this, because there's this famous phrase that you know, people say like, oh, you're young, you don't have experience. You know, that's what you often hear in this region of South America, where I live. And I think that that has been the biggest challenge that we are currently facing, and that I think we'll continue to face because everything is a process. And that's one of the main challenges that we're facing on this side of Latin America, principally. And I think we should be brave, strengthen ourselves, not let fear conquer us, and to continue forward. And so this is my contribution to this meeting, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Rodolfo. I know that we're short on time, but I want to make sure that we hear from all of our planned speakers. So I hope that our audience can stay a bit longer with us. So I would now like to hand over to Osama from Morocco. Osama, please turn on your camera so that I can see you. And there you are. Hello. Osama, please also from your side, from the region of North Africa and from your local community, please share with us.
D'accord. Bonjour. D'accord. Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Je m'appelle Oussama
So,
Fagouri.
hi everyone. My name is Oussama Fagouri. I come from Morocco. So, I come from the province of Midelt. I'm actively engaged in pastoralism. I come from a community of pastoralists. So I'm engaged in pastoral governance. For example, I'm taking part of this WAMIP youth group and other forums at local level. So regarding the question you asked me earlier, so, as I said, I'm engaged in pastoral governance in my region by regularly attending local meetings, working closely with others, and engage in improving the sustainable practice for the management of grazing land. So there are grazing land that are closed in some time of the year. And through this through these efforts, I contribute to strengthening traditional systems while actually adapting them to today's challenges like climate change and drought. A key part of my work is raising awareness among young people about the importance of pastoralism, which is actually not only an economic activity, but also a vital part of amazing identity and culture. I promote sustainable practices such as the management of AGDAL, so this pasture rest period, and which help preserve rangeland and ensure long-term resilience. So beyond awareness, I also focus on strengthening youth participation in local associations and cooperatives. So thank you so much for listening to me today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Osama. So now we, thank you very much. So we now move to Europe. We travel to Europe to hear from some of our Germany-based young shepherds. And I would like to invite Hannah and Felix to also turn on their cameras. And I will start with Hannah. So hi, Hannah. And as we've heard today, most of our young pastoralist members in this group come from a pastoralist background, but as far as I know, you don't, and you have decided to pursue this profession. And I wanted to know what made you interested in becoming a shepherd.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, that's right. My mom's a doctor and my father's in engineering, but I was always into nature. So I have studied agriculture science and have seen the beauty and necessary of sheep in our nature, the biodiversity and the synergy with other systems like soil, flowers, and insects. And yeah, it's a tough job here and sadly not economic. So we are dependent on subsidies and cannot live from our products like wool or meat. Yeah, and I'm now working for 2 years in a full-time wandering shepherd. Yeah.
Okay. And what about Felix? Felix, are you there?
Yes. Hello, everybody. Yes, I'm Felix. I'm 31 years old. And yes, my father is a shepherd, and so I came to farming. I didn't practice vocation in farming, modern farming, like we in Europe have. But after some years, I worked as a farmer. I found my passion in my roots as a shepherd. As First, at an age of 25 years, I understand the modern intensive farming isn't all times well. Sheep and goats can produce food in areas where the modern farming can't without negative consequences of nature. The modern farming is expensive, dependent on global markets that the most German farmers and shepherds only can be economical with subsidies because of a lot of regulations and so on. We have big differently rangelands in Germany and many more in Europe.
Thank you. And it would be also interesting to hear your perspective in Germany and maybe even in Europe. But what do you think are the biggest challenges for the young shepherds, and what kind of changes are needed or you would like to see to improve your job today?
At first, I would say more acknowledgement from our society. We have high costs in our animal production, but no one wants to pay us in a proper way. The market sets the price, and we have no influence at all. Second, we need planning certainty and competitiveness and practical framework conditions. And with that, a long-term perspective that is not permanently dependent on exceptions or project fundings.
Felix, anything to add from your side?
Yes, as kind of advice from our industry nations, what we see here and now things have a little bit suggest with the increasing prosperity in some parts of the world, the importance of primary production and pastoral farming is like forgotten. The know-how of pastoralism must be preserved so that dependence on subsidy systems, as it now the case with us, never arises.
Thank you so much to both of you, and interesting to hear from your side as the challenges, I think, for you are quite different to the challenges from the other young shepherds that we've heard from today. But
to have us here.
Yes, very valuable perspective. So now we have time for some questions, and I would like to invite all of our audience to either raise your hand to ask a question live, or maybe if there's a question in the chat that hasn't been answered yet, we can also ask them to our speakers. And maybe while some of you think of your question and prepare, I could also ask a question to our speakers. I would like to know, given that we've heard a lot about the different challenges that you're facing, and also some also areas of improvement and recommendations that you provided to us. I also wanted to know whether there are any innovations and initiatives that are being led by young pastoralists, because I know that some of you do have examples of that. So maybe I could ask, who could we ask? Maybe John Mark, or would you like to share some innovations from your community?
Yeah, I would love to share that briefly. Some innovations that we're doing as youth to the resilient or climate change adaptive measures is one. We're doing an innovation on the cow early speaking warning system. This is a frequency kind of a network communication whereby we connect with pastoralists in the remote areas that have poor network. We connect with them on messaging them on what patterns during the different seasons of grazing, during the wet and dry. We're able to inform them that maybe particular, like right now we're in is the wet season. We don't graze around the plains because of the rainfall erratic kind of influence and the river banks and all that. So we use that the cow early speaking warning system as one way to communicate to the pastoralists in the rangelands, mainly through the radio communication, local radio communication networks around. So they're able to pick, so they're able to know whether they're supposed to graze within that rangeland that particular period or not through that system, and it's effective. Yeah, we're trying to advance. The other one also is we're doing what we call traditional beekeeping, which is a buffer to climate shock, looking at pastoralism as a sole identity here in Karamoja. We realized that you have to diversify as pastoralists in a sense that the climate weather system here doesn't guarantee us most times that we have pastures, but at least we're looking at alternative measures of always having these pastoralists have this livelihood sustained in a way that areas that like they were grazed like in the dry, we're able to do traditional beekeeping there. That's one way to restore the ecosystem within that area. So you realize there is no harm. Rather, again, it's a linkage we build on that, whereby the time these pastoralists harvest that honey, we're able to link them to those local markets. Along the value chain, they come up with the village saving groups. Kind of, they join in, they're doing a kind of a local saving from the honey sold, and then the wax made, and then they're able to use that money to access veterinary services for the animals in the rangelands. They're able to buy, maybe there's some salt licks, kind of from the drug shops, some kind of medicines, just as to sustain, because literally the governing system, it's not guaranteed that the vaccination, the mass vaccination always covers all the pastoralists. So I've come up with that innovativeness that they should also diversify in this kind of aspect. The other, I would say, innovation we're also doing in our response, periodically or historically, Karamaja region has been prone to cattle raids because we're bordering the pastoralist communities of the Turkana from Kenya, so the Toposa from Sudan, the Nyangatom from Ethiopia. So along, we have always those resource conflicts. How we brought it back on top is one, we have had what we call the peace forum committees, or the Karachuna that we call them youth. So the youth are able to mediate the different communities in dialogues, in sensitization meetings, by mediating resource conflicts and also developing sharing resource conflict agreements within the communities to at least calm down the rangelands in a way that they are not degraded, because the other kind of resource users doesn't feel like the other pastoralists shouldn't invade into to grazing their animals, either during the wet or dry season. The other aspect, the last one, is we're also doing what we call a community-led participatory rangeland management initiative with the youth. Hand in hand, we're able to develop the different resources that are governing our rangelands, and we're able to map out and locate that. Where do we graze during the wet season? Where do we graze during the dry season? This is also a tool that's going to help the community in one way to, first of all, monitor the data of the rangelands, and secondly, also monitor the health ecosystem of the rangelands in a way that we're able to discover what is not right or what is not working out for this particular rangeland for the pastoralists. I don't want to take much of your time. Just a summary of what we are doing as innovativeness as youth in Karamoja. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, John Mark. I'm wondering if anybody would like to ask a question. Oh, I see Abdel Rahim Abdallah. You can unmute yourself.
Hello, colleagues. Good afternoon. Actually, I'm from Sudan. Fortunately for this meeting, actually, I received the invitation from one of my colleagues because he knows that this is part of my interest. For me, actually, I'm coming from livestock community, meaning that most of our community actually they just rear livestock as means of livelihood. And the way we are rearing the livestock actually is just a traditional way of farming, meaning that we have not the kind of modernized farm. We just depend on we move whenever there is water and pasture. This is why part of our community, like nomadic, they are always in movement, trying just to look for water and pasture. Regarding the
We don't hear you anymore. You're muted.
Yeah. Regarding the governance and decision-making process, actually, when we come to these issues in relation to the pastoralists or the livestock keepers, or the community where I came from, actually due to the fact that we as a community or as livestock keepers or livestock actually, we live in a very remote area, and at the same time the infrastructure itself is very poor, and illiteracy actually is one of the issue or the phenomena that is very clear among the community or the livestock keepers. Due to this, actually, the livestock keepers or the pastoralists are very far from the decision-making process. Although we have native administration, because based on the structure of the state, we have of the country, we have the state, and then we have localities, and then we have admin unit. At locality level, actually, we have the head of the native administration, and that we call it Nazir or Umda, and actually this is in very close contact with the commissioner or the governor of the locality. And
sorry, I'm sorry to cut you off just because we are short on time. And I appreciate you also sharing inputs from your community. I'm just wondering if there is a question, because I know that I would like to leave space for another question and also give time back to our interpreters who've been working hard.
Okay, thank you. Actually, because I'm just trying to express the decision-making process that we have. But my question, if I just jump to the question, then I can just ask whether actually I just want to know the ways the pastoralists, how they involve in the decision-making process at state level, at federal level, and all these things, apart from the pastoralist union and other bodies. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I think it's a big question, and will depend, of course, on the specific community that we're talking about and the geography. I'm wondering if your question is to someone in particular?
Not particularly from, if there is any experience from any country, from the participant.
Not sure if anyone would like to answer this question. Thank you, Abdelrahim.
Can you repeat the question, please?
The question actually, I'm just trying to know some of the ways that the participant they have in how the pastoralist or the nomadic or the pastoralist or the livestock keepers are involved in the decision-making process at federal level and then at lower level like the admin unit. Thank you.
Well, we have, well, Reem, if you would like to go ahead, but we also have representatives of the WAMIP Global Steering Committee here who do participate in a lot of different governance roles. Maybe someone would like to take this question. But I think the answer to this question will, of course, depend on the responder. And from what we're seeing within WAMIP is that there are multiple ways that pastoralist communities can take part in governance frameworks. For example, what we're seeing just in the way that we operate is that there are leaders, the community leaders that take part in different networks and who, through the power of collaboration and cooperation with their partners and also other pastoralist representatives and other actors, are able to have a stronger voice in different governance spaces. We just had one example of a success story from our regional coordinator for Eastern and Southern Africa, actually in South Sudan, Benjamin Mutambuka, who's in charge of the ESIPM, the Eastern and Southern Africa Pastoralist Network, who signed an memorandum of understanding with policymakers in South Sudan to actually promote the rights of pastoralists and to cooperate together on the efforts. So if that's helpful, I can put you in touch, Abdelrahim, maybe with Benjamin, and he can tell you a bit more about that experience.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, look, I know that we're over time, and I really appreciate your time and also your engagement. And I think for all of us, it was a pleasure as well to have you here, and also quite a big signal, an important signal to our young pastoralists to actually have this platform to voice their experiences, to have their voices heard. So we really appreciate having this space and having the emphasis on our young members. So thank you all very much. And I would invite you that if you have any other questions or even any inputs or feedback, comments, please feel free to reach out to me or to any of our speakers. We will be sending you all a summary of this webinar, a recording, and also the slides. So you will have contact details and you can contact me and I will forward your question. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it. And I wish you all a good rest of your day and the best of luck in your important work.
Thanks,
Thank
Aliyah.
you. Thank you all. And big thank you to our interpreters.
Thank you, Aliyah.
Goodbye.
Everyone.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thank you, Aliyah, and you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you
Bye-bye.
all.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks to the
Merci.
Thank
interpreters.
you, our
Merci.
Thank you all. Have a good day.
future leaders.
Thank you, everyone. The youth of the future. Bye.
سعاد كيف حالك سعاد؟ سعاد كيف حالك سعاد؟
باي باي.
كويسة يا خالد، كويسة. كيفك؟ انت جاوبتني، ما حبيتش تجاوبني.
All right.
بخير الحمد لله. يسعدك كيف حالك؟
المهم تكونوا
Thank you
بخير.
Aliyah. Thank you everybody. Thank
Bye
you
bye.
our youth leaders. Thank you so much. Bye مع السلامة.